And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome aboard on this Friday. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service. It is Friday, May 16th, 2025, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook. We start with the state of the sea ice, and we're really noting a fair amount of ice dispersion and melting off here across the northern half of the Bering Sea from areas either side of St. Matthew to in and around St. Lawrence Island. And again, the melting is occurring at a rather rapid pace at this point and will continue to do so as we slide into the early summer season. And looking at the synoptic weather map here later this Friday night into early Saturday morning, we have a weak area of low pressure over the western Gulf with a trough extending into the Panhandle. The steadier rains that have been along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle this Friday will begin to diminish to more scattered, lighter showers lingering into at least Saturday morning with improving conditions. It'll be a drier period, especially Saturday evening into Sunday morning, but another low is going to be coming up out of the North Pacific and bring some more rain, especially to southern and central parts of the Panhandle as we get into later Sunday and into Monday. But weak troughs linger across the mainland interior into northwest Canada. Will be a focus for some scattered rain showers, lower elevations, still some snow showers in the mountains. Areas along the west coast, this trough weakening, and by Saturday afternoon we have a weak area of low pressure between the Brooks Range and the Yukon River. In the central interior, another trough of low pressure extending into northwest Canada with a scattering of mainly rain showers with the daytime heating. Although this looks more threatening, it's not going to be that widespread, and still some lingering showers areas of the Panhandle and along the Gulf Coast. Now here comes that next low, and the overall pattern is going to be a weak one, but we still have unsettled weather with these weak areas of low pressure or troughs of low pressure. By Sunday afternoon, here comes that next low, and especially as we get into Sunday evening, Sunday night into Monday, we expect some more rain pulling into the Panhandle. Meanwhile, trough low pressure extends back out there across the Gulf, or back across the mainland rather. And no really strong systems, so to speak of, but just enough. You get the daytime heating that we get now that we're well into spring, into May. We expect there to be a scattering of showers. Now for the Panhandle Saturday, not quite as wet, still some scattered lingering light showers. Winds will be northwest 10 knots around Ketchikan, Metlakatla, waves 4 or 5 feet. Inner channel, Stevens Passage to Lynn Canal, south winds 10 knots, waves a couple of feet. And then for the outer coast, Sitka south to Craig, west winds 10 to 15 knots, waves right around 7 feet. Southwest winds turning more southeasterly toward Cape Suckling or into Yakutat Bay at 10 knots and waves 6 feet. Across the broad area of the region, Sunday, look for southeast winds, inner channel, 10 to 15 knots, waves generally a couple of feet, though maybe 3 feet there toward Metlakatla. And then for the outer coast, southeast winds outside of Yakutat Bay all the way down along the southeastern Gulf with winds right around 20 knots and waves running 5-6 feet. For the northwestern Gulf, starting with Prince William Sound and outside of Hinchinbrook entrance to Kayak Island, east winds 15 knots on Saturday. Waves a couple of feet, Prince William Sound, maybe 5-6 feet outside of Hinchinbrook entrance. Variable winds 10 knots, upper Cook Inlet and along the eastern Kenai Peninsula. And for lower Cook Inlet, southwest to west winds 10 to 15 knots, waves 3 to 5 feet. On Sunday, winds will be northeasterly within Prince William Sound at 10 knots, waves 2 feet. Generally east winds 15 knots outside of Hinchinbrook entrance with waves 4 to 5 feet. South winds, upper Cook Inlet 10 knots, west winds there off north of Anchor Point at about 10 knots, and then an east wind at 15 knots there in lower Cook Inlet to Kamishak Bay with waves right around 3 feet. Winds will generally be variable across the Alaska Peninsula Saturday around 10 knots, maybe 15-knot west winds within Shelikof Strait with 4-foot waves and maybe a southwest wind 15 knots north of Cold Bay. But pretty benign conditions, and then more of the same. Winds may be northerly 15 knots within Shelikof Strait, westerly within Bristol Bay about 10 knots, but otherwise east side of Kodiak Island and middle lower portion of the Alaska Peninsula. Just variable winds around 10 knots, waves maybe 2 to 3 feet. The Aleutian chain also light variable winds, eastern central Aleutians at about 10 knots. As we get west of Adak, winds will be more southwesterly and picking up from 15 to 25 knots there between Kiska and Shemya. And then on Sunday, a continuation of variable winds across the eastern and central Aleutians at only about 10 knots, waves just a couple of feet. But as you get west of Adak, south to west winds become more westerly, 15 to 20 knots, Kiska out toward Shemya. Along Bristol Bay, south winds of 10 knots into Bristol Bay, southeast winds of 10 knots there in Kuskokwim Bay, variable winds around 10 knots in the vicinity of the Pribilof, so waves only 3-4 feet. Along the lower Yukon coast into Norton Sound, look for northwest to west winds 10 to 15 knots, waves foot or two. And then on Sunday, we expect variable winds, St. Matthew down through the Pribilofs at 10 knots, waves just a couple of feet. West winds Bristol Bay, northwest winds 15 knots into Kuskokwim Bay, and along the lower Yukon coast up into Norton Sound at wider expanse, we're looking at north to northwest winds at 15 knots on Sunday, waves 2 to 3 feet. And then down across the west side of the Seward Peninsula back towards St. Lawrence Island, look for northwest to west winds at 15 knots, where you have some open water waves, maybe a few feet. Lower Chukchi, kind of a mix of winds, west winds 10 knots into Kotzebue Sound. And as we go up north of Cape Lisburne, winds turn more northeasterly, 15 to 20 knots off of Point Lay and Wainwright. And then along the Arctic coast, look for generally west to southwest winds 5 to 10 knots. And on Sunday, along the Beaufort Sea coast, Utqiagvik to Kaktovik, look for northwest to west winds at 10 knots. As we come down through the lower Chukchi, though, the winds will be stronger. Look for generally north winds around 20 to 25 knots and passing through the Bering Strait to the west side of St. Lawrence Island, or I should say along the Seward Peninsula and over toward Savunda and Gambell. We expect winds on Sunday to be generally out of the north at 20 to 25 knots.